Good morning, Andrew. We are back at it again. Another Friday morning Maker That Money. This is episode 16, and today we're going to talk about
16. Wow.
16. Congrats on our sweet 16, my friend.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about setting expectations, which is just such a juicy topic. There's so much there. So we'll get to that in just a second. Greetings to everybody that's joining us on YouTube. We record this on YouTube every Friday morning, so that's a great opportunity. If you have questions, comments, want to participate in the live chat, you can do so there. We also stream this all out on a weekly basis to all the major podcast platforms. But if you're new, welcome. This is Maker That Money, and we are two small business owners that kind of got our start in the maker sphere, kind of hobbyists and stuff. And we took our passion projects and decided we're going to turn it into a business. We're going to make a run. My name is Pooch. I own a company called Repkord, and with me, I have my good friend, the leader of the Empire of Sticky 3D Gloop, Andrew Mayhall. Andrew, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm hanging in, man. Another week under the belt, flying by, just flying by, as I always like to say. But
I can't believe it's Friday already.
I know we say that every Friday, but it's true.
Oh.
You know, it's one of those things. Good, man. I'm getting a good crowd. Lefteris from NX3D, welcome. Good to see you. Fotis is with us. You guys, if you're not
Sweet.
following Fotis Mint, he is just a prolific, amazing designer. We're going to actually have him on the show in a coming, hopefully one of these weeks soon. And he's going to talk, we're going to go deep on what it's like managing just a massive Patreon following and what business in that realm looks like, because I'll tell you, I don't have a design bone in my body, and so I'm just like blown away at the talent that's there. Awesome. 3D Musketeers Grant, Filament Stories, welcome guys. It's really good to see you. I hope you guys are as excited about today's topic as we are, because like I said, it's a juicy one. Expectations. Andrew, let's kick it off talking about expectations, and that can cover a lot of ground, right? That's like, what are your customers' expectations of you? What are your expectations of your vendors? What are your expectations of yourself, your employees, everybody that you interact with, whether it's in your personal life or your business life? Expectations abound. They are everywhere, right?
They are everywhere.
Yeah. And so, what is it when you... Is it a positive term for you? Is it a negative thing? What do you feel when you hear the word expectation?
Oh man, it's one of those words that, yes, it's most of the time it's positive, right? But it just gives me this worry in my gut. Because I think so often as a business owner, when dealing with customers, right, you want to have like a quality expectation that you're delivering. And sometimes you can get very easily caught up in this loop of, am I delivering that quality to the customers?
Oh yeah.
Are they getting what they expect?
Right.
And then you reflect internally and you're like, well, I've got to raise it, right? I'm not doing enough and I'm not meeting my own expectations. And
right,
it could snowball.
100%. It could snowball, and that's an interesting point. And one of the challenges of it, that it seems like expectations only ever go up, right? Then,
they never go down.
Hey, lower your expectations, guys. Like, but there's a healthy balance in there, right? In that we don't want to put too much pressure on, because a lot of times expectation leads to pressure, and that can be a good thing, right? Like, it's a motivating thing. I know we are very simpatico in the sense that I think that we take the public opinion of our product and our company and stuff like very seriously, and that can be a great thing. That can be a good thing, but it can also be just this phenomenal weight.
Oh yes,
yeah, and right, and so how do you stay healthy with that? How do you make sure that it just doesn't, push down on you too hard?
It's tough, right? Because on one hand, I mean, personally, I feel that when the expectations are rising,
Mm,
that I need to deliver to that, and sometimes it's impossible. And I think as a business owner, you have to realize when you're over the limit, and again, then you have to kind of reset those expectations.
okay.
Whether it's something with shipping, like our products, when we get orders in, we strive to get them out the next day. When we're flooded with orders, there's just no way, right?
Mm,
And so then from there, it's like, okay, well, now I've got to go and send an email saying, hey guys, it's going to take 2, 3, 4 days extra
mm.
because of the number of orders or
Well,
something,
at least you're
right?
sending that
um
email. Think about how many things you guys have bought out there where it's just like,
mhm.
the frustration because like there's no communication, right? And so as a
Oh yeah.
customer, we have expectations of communication, and it gets really frustrating when that doesn't exist, right? So
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, but I completely agree with you, and I understand. And you've
Mhm.
set an interesting precedent and an expectation that may be realistic as you're getting started, say like a 24-hour turn on an order, something
Mhm.
like that. I think that's a
Yep.
great, it's a great goal.
Yeah.
But obviously as you grow and the realities of that, are you setting a good precedent? I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat in terms of like what's a reasonable expectation? And this is probably going to depend on the product and how popular it is and all that stuff. But what is a reasonable expectation of something that you buy and how long it should take to get shipped just by default? And that's a really tough question in the days of Amazon Prime and all of these things where it's just I need it now. I pay for it. I get it now, right? And so,
Yep. 2 days,
oh
it's
my
gonna be
gosh,
here.
yeah, like express shipping that we don't even have to really pay for express. It's just become the default
Mhm.
expectation, right? And that as a small
Yep.
business owner, let me tell you, that is a really hard, bar to try to follow along. Or the same thing with like, the Nordstroms out there or the Costco's that'll just take back anything, no
Mhm.
matter what your
Anything.
problem is. I've been
30, 60
I've
days,
been using this
after.
mattress for 3 years and I don't like it anymore, and I'm gonna bring it back. Yeah, like gross, right? But still,
Yep.
but we have expectations as customers. And has it gone too far? What do you guys think? Has it gone too
Yeah.
far? I don't know. I it it's I mean,
I know my thoughts.
wait, tell me your thoughts.
So it's tough, right? Because we have customers, they'll reach out and they'll be like, "Hey, where's our order? We ordered this last week." And what we find is they ordered it on Friday at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's
Right,
now Monday in the afternoon,
right.
and they're like, "Where is it?" And it's like, well, hey, like, I know that you're used to Amazon shipping over the weekend, that sort of stuff. We're not Amazon. We
Yeah.
we work Monday through Friday. Or one of the big ones, right? USPS. That's what we do a lot of shipping through, and
Hmm.
a lot
That's our
of times,
domestic post for our international crowd. That's our domestic postal
yeah,
service here, United States Postal Service.
yeah,
You're welcome
yeah.
for
So
that mansplain.
so biggest thing is we have a nightmare of a time with them because they lose packages or they won't scan packages, and they'll just magically appear on their door one day, like, but the tracking information says that it hasn't even been scanned in, and then after it's at your house for a couple hours, then it's like, oh hey, your package has been delivered.
Yeah. Oh man.
you know and so many times we get blamed for these
Oh
expectations
yeah.
of customers, because they're like, well, why can't you make USPS do it? It's like, well, I don't run USPS. I can't
Why
make them
can't
do
you make
anything.
why why can't you why can't you make the USPS perform, Andrew? Well, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm just one man. If the government can't figure out how to do it, what makes you think we can, right? Jeez. Sorry, that's a bad day. Yeah. And there's a knock at the door. Yeah. I think this is a great, first sub subject of expectations. So talking about customer expectations and stuff like that, and,
Hmm.
and coping with that as our business. And so obviously, like you said, that shipping speed expectation and all that stuff, and managing that, and how you're oftentimes just affiliated with
Yep.
the shipper, whether it's USPS or UPS or FedEx or whatever, that is a reflection on you and your business, right? Well, to the customer, it's like, look, I paid for
Hmm.
it. Like, until it gets to my door, it's on you, right? Is
Yeah.
the expectation, and that actually is the legal precedent. Like, as much as, and it's backwards
Hmm.
as that sounds, right? Like, but that's why
Yep.
shipping insurance and stuff exists. Like, we ship something out the door, and we're like, okay, good, we did our part, and then UPS inevitably destroys it or loses it or whatever, and then customers like, well, I didn't get it, and so
Yeah.
it's not, you chose to use them. So, and to some extent,
Yep.
that's true. But
Hmm.
it's one of the biggest challenges about running an online business, where it's like you're just so dependent on that third party to perform. And
Yeah.
for the most part, it goes well, but when it doesn't, it feels so painful. Like we're
Hmm.
always talking about these stories about, this one order and it's always one that's like going to like BFE, just like
Yep.
Malaysia
Yep.
or something weird that's
Yep.
super expensive when it gets lost to reship it. Murphy's Law would dictate that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
oh man. So, okay, so to kick things off, we've got customer expectations of time. Let's talk about for a second on the customer
Hmm.
expectation side, customer expectation of product. Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that I find to be interesting that I don't think occurred to me when I
Hmm.
first got into this was how many people just rely on photography or video
Yes.
to set the tone of what the product is, right? Like, we spent all this time writing descriptions, trying to be as like forthright as possible with what the product is, what it does, what maybe if there's any limitations or
Hmm.
things or add-ons that you need to get. Okay. Uh,
Yep.
and people don't read it, right? And so,
Yep.
how many emails have you ever gotten where somebody's like, look, your product sucks because it doesn't do this, and you're like, I never said it was supposed to do that, right? What is it?
There's a very
Yeah,
interesting piece to this. Like, so we have adhesives, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, you do.
so the issue here is that so many people are used to standard run of the mill adhesives. Gloop is not a, standard run of the mill adhesive. And so when they get the product and it's not working per their expectations, it's like, okay, there's a disconnect there,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest ones is like, oh, your product is drying too fast because we can't apply it to this large surface area. And it's like, well, you don't need to apply it to a large surface area. We say so
Ah,
everywhere,
yeah.
but
But they
they
don't
have
read
this
that.
expectation. Well, yeah, they have this expectation that's naturally set by working with other adhesives that, hey, I've got, 24 hours before this stuff dries. I can slather it all over the surface and just call it good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when they try that and it doesn't work, then it makes our product look bad, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that we have even on our bottles is like, hey, work fast. Gloop starts to react almost instantly. The solvents dry very quickly, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those other things. It's like, how do we as a business, communicate this to the customer to set their
And
expectations,
that's
right? You
such a
know,
good question. I mean, what do you guys
yeah.
think? You're a lot of a lot of you guys have businesses yourself. Like, what are the ways? What are the tools in the toolbox for better
Hmm.
setting expectations? That and it's never. Oh, there's never a one side. There's no silver bullet here, right? There's never a
Nope.
one side, because you can spend all this time like getting good videos together, putting 3D models up, taking great photography, and you're always going to have the person that's
Mhm.
like, you didn't write it in the description well enough.
Yep.
Or what about accessibility things? What about people that are using the voice, the text to speech things, are your, and that's where it gets important to make sure that your website is accessible, and that it can be used by those I'm sorry, I'm screwing it up. Is it the TTL machines or whatever it is
Yeah, something
that'll
like that.
read
Mhm.
the descriptions of the photos and stuff like that? So,
Mhm.
you know, um, I think it's like anything, it's going to be a combination of things, and you're never going to get it perfect. Never going to get it perfect. And so some of that is lowering your own personal expectations, right? That you're going to
Yeah.
have the misses, you're
Yes.
going to have the people that aren't going to read, they're not going to look at things. They're just going to look. I saw Joel using this on his stream, or I saw Clayton
Mhm.
You guys had,
Yeah.
I know we skipped over our wins, but you guys had a big blast this week because Clayton did a fantastic video on
Oh,
all the different
yes.
ways to, put together 3D printed parts. And of course, Gloop, you'd be remiss if you
Yeah.
didn't mention Gloop in terms of how to put, printed parts together. And so shout out Uncle Jesse. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was a good win for you, right?
Yeah, it was awesome, like, totally not expecting it, and, it was fantastic, so, yeah, big shout out to Clayton.
But back to the point, it's like, okay, now you got a bunch of new eyes that don't necessarily may not have been familiar with the product before. They're just
Yep,
seeing, okay, that's what this influencer used. Okay. And
yep,
and part of your challenge as a product is it's just like somebody looks at it and it's like, I don't need directions. It's a glue. It's super glue. It's what it's just like
yep,
I don't need
mhm,
instructions on how to use glue. And
yep,
that is such a challenge because they're not all the same, obviously.
no.
I run into it all the time because I sell storage boxes and people are like, how hard is I put together 3D printers and I assemble these amazing technical things. How hard is it to assemble a box? It's not. It's going to be way easier on you if you do it
Mhm.
by following the directions. I can't tell you how many frustrated customers I have that are just like, I got here and it took me, way longer to put together, because they were just making assumptions about how it was done. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, again, I don't know that there's a perfect solution, but what other tools in the toolbox are you thinking in terms of setting the customer expectations and really trying to educate with you
Mhm.
have that elevator pitch, you have that five
Yep,
seconds, right? Does
mhm.
it have to go on the label? Like, does it have to?
So one of the things that we found was that and this was a product of our own creation, and it's just or an issue of our own creation, and it's just been very frustrating. But when we launched Gloop, right, we launched it kind of as a bed adhesive, right? Gloop is not the greatest at a bed adhesive. It works, but it's not. And so now what we fight is that we set this expectation that Gloop is for glue, basically putting your prints on your build platform while you're printing. And we get so many emails and questions all the time, like, oh, hey, like, why, how do I clean this up, blah blah blah, what does this do, like, and it's just like, well, most people don't use it for that application now. And so we're actually in the process of trying to reset those expectations, if you will. And that is a very hard thing to do because now we had this big massive people that knew Gloop as this, and now it's being known as something new, right, for gluing your parts together.
Okay.
And so what we're trying to do is come up with cool interactive ways, to basically educate the customer in a way that they're learning, but they're learning something that it seems new to them, but it's actually not new. And so how we do that is through visuals and through like simple little gifs or animations. That's what we've been working on for the past about a year now, that'll actually be launching soon on our website. But we've been beta testing this with a lot of like customers, past customers, customers that have had issues specifically with our product, that we reach out and we say, hey, we know we screwed up with you.
Uh huh.
How could we do better?
Uh huh.
Right.
Uh huh.
And one of the really cool things now is you have these very short pieces of content that are like YouTube shorts and TikTok. And
Yeah.
we found that those pieces are doing like so much good for explaining what our product is and what it's capable of doing. So breaking
Absolutely.
down this something complex or even something as simple, but breaking it up into something very short and sweet, it really helps, right?
I'm glad you brought that up because we're having people in the chat bring up TikTok. I
Oh
want to I
yeah.
want to focus on a point. We'll talk about that in just a second, but I want to focus on a point that Britt in the chat brought up. In therapy, she says she's told to have people set expectations up front and clearly. She muses, I wonder if that works in business as well. And I would
Mm,
say 100% that works. I think expectations are somewhat universal in that regard,
hmm.
that obviously being as clear as possible and setting these expectations up front is critical in like establishing who you are and setting your reputation as a business and all that stuff. But it's not easy, obviously, like because you're
Hmm.
fighting against assumption as the antithesis to the whole thing, right? Like I want you to understand my product and my company and my brand as X, but
Hmm.
at first pass they don't get any of that context. And so they're going to just
Yeah.
kind of make assumptions. Well, it comes in a bottle and it looks like
Yeah.
it looks like super glue or whatever, so I'm going to just treat it
Yeah.
the same way. um
Yep.
to go back to the TikTok thing, CRS1 says TikTok length videos, embed them on the site, reuse them in socials. I love this and I hate it at the same time, right? And part of it is because I'm still trying to learn TikTok. But whether it's TikTok or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, we have this amazing
Hmm.
tool in front of us that can um really, when wielded well, when leveraged well, serve as your instruction guide, your expectation setter. And where I think TikTok and the power of that is like and shorts. It's you've gotta distill your elevator
Hmm.
pitch, your value proposition
Yep.
down into a very very short amount of time, because boom, somebody's just scrolling on by, they're on to the next video, right? And so when
Hmm.
done well, it's not a training video. It's like, hey, I want to show you something really cool that I figured out, or I'm doing, or what, or how this is how we're using this product, and
Yep.
really trying to control the dialogue, control the messaging in that way. So you're starting to use
Hmm.
TikTok to that effect, yes? And you come in directly out with this content, or are you using other people to help, or is it both?
So right now we're leveraging other people, right? And it's just because we don't have the bandwidth to do it ourselves.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that what we're doing is we're taking notes. Like literally every day we go through the
Hmm.
TikToks and we see what people are using our Gloop for, or how it's going, and we literally keep notes of how many views, how many interactions the videos get, because it's telling us, okay, hey, this is content that is interesting to people, but it's ways in which we liked the way it was explained. Like for instance, Filament Stories, they did an amazing
Courtney,
video on
shout
what
out
Gloop does.
Filament
Yeah.
Stories. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she did an amazing video on what Gloop is, how it works, what it does. Like, we took notes on that, and
Hmm.
it's one of those things that we're trying to figure out. Okay, how do we take this content and put it into our website or in our product pages, it to some capacity, right? Whether it's distilled down even further into short animations or gifs or even text,
Right,
but it gets the point across
right.
and sets those expectations to the customer to how to use it, right?
Absolutely. And
So.
I think the most salient points of that too are like anytime you can use other people, because that's the thing
Mhm.
that we're so sensitive to just like being sold things. Like if I am on
Mhm.
there and I am trying, people are immediately going like, well, yeah, of course you're excited about it because it's your product and you're trying to sell it. But nothing
Mhm.
advocates for you. That's why influencer marketing is obviously so successful and so important and stuff like that. But it doesn't even take massive influencers out there. Like a lot of times it's just everyday people, and nothing, you know, sets expectations and shows product as well as just seeing the product in action, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's
Yep.
still some things like hopefully they're not just like opening the bottle up and just like taking a big whiff of it and stuff like you need kind of hopefully, so
Oh
you lose
yeah.
some control of the mess, and that's a slippery slope,
Yep.
right? Because influencers want to be
Mhm.
free to have their genuine opinion of these things.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're going to move the needle a lot more for you potentially, and the way that
Mhm.
word of mouth and how viral, what viral really means, like becomes very clear to you as a business, like the impact on your sales as a result of
Mhm.
that just continual effort. To be clear, guys, I Josh brings up, he's surprised that I don't like TikTok or short video. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I'm not good at it yet, or I haven't figured out how to clip it, because there's a style to every little thing, and
Mhm.
I feel like you've got one chance, and this may be just maybe you have one chance to make a first impression, and I don't want to come across as that total, uh, you know. noob that just doesn't know what he's doing and using the platform, improperly. And so I'm just trying to observe and absorb as much as I can. And thankfully, I've got awesome people in the community that have volunteered to help me out, or that have reached out to help me out. And so I'm looking forward to
awesome.
understanding more about it. But obviously, that's one of 10,000 hats that we wear, and finding time to educate myself on the social media du jour is a challenge
Oh man,
sometimes.
Don't get me started. Don't know how to do social media at all.
That you're selling yourself short, right? I mean, half of the game is just getting out
Yeah.
there and doing it, right? Because there's those that
Yeah.
would probably make the argument, look, even if you don't kind of have it right in the first, you're better off just starting. Which
Yep,
I
absolutely.
subscribe to that belief. So I think
Yeah.
part of that is just me, just getting started on that, and trying to overcome the, the just the frustration of it being, one of a million other things that are on my list of things I need to do that I
Yep.
just haven't quite gotten to yet. And we've talked about hiring. I was like, well, can I hire somebody? But then are they ever going to
yes.
do it to the extent that you want? And how much is the brand me versus,
Mhm.
so there's a lot of other stuff in there. I would love to be a TikTok guru, or it's just a social
There you
media
go.
guru of sorts. Like, I don't leverage
There
any
you
of the
go.
platforms to the extent that we need to. But let's go back. Let's go back to some more expectation talk. So we talk about product expectation, customer expectation. I think the flip side of the coin, one of the things that you brought up was the burden of the expectation informing, for product, whatever.
Mhm.
But in a way, that's it can be a good thing too. It feels like it's
Mhm.
just a drag when you're, just eating crap on a lot of different
Mhm.
issues and stuff like that. But hopefully it's one of those things that inspires you to get to a better place, to make improvement. Like, that's the
Mhm.
double-edged sword of like being out and bearing your soul to the world, right, in
Yep.
public. And I'm putting a product out there, which is me and my mind and my ideas, and if it sucks, people will tell you.
Mhm.
and
Oh yeah.
and trying to maintain some balance and not getting too caught up in the echo chamber, because you're always going to have the fanboys. They're just like, oh yeah, this is awesome and stuff.
Mhm.
Like, and I appreciate that, and that's great, but I want to hear, I've said on this show too, I want point counterpoint.
Mhm.
I want to hear about when it doesn't go well. And
Oh yeah.
some days like I can handle that better than others, but usually, like, after I absorb the feedback and analyze it and respond to it, I come to a
Mhm.
better place. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. I don't know if I want to call it my win for this week, but it's as good as anything, I suppose. So a lot of you guys that are following me on Twitter saw, like, last night I just kind of put out this little thing, and I just affectionately named it the Rotini, and it's literally a silly simple print, and it's for 3D printer spools. A lot of companies are releasing cardboard spools now, which is great. It's great for
Mhm.
the environment. I think I'm 100% behind it, but the designs that I've done for my storage boxes and stuff are based on the more long-standing usage of plastic spools, rigid
Mhm.
sides, right? Because we use a flange
Yeah.
rolling or a slip rod now to, allow that spool to spin. And I'm at a point now where the industry's kind of shifted a little, and we didn't really have a great solution. Like, well, how do I use my cardboard spools with this? And so, I created like a little stand that just has a traditional arbor, but that's, more, you got to print something else out or make another product and put it in there and stuff like that. And so I've been getting
Mhm.
hammered left and right. Like, your box sucks, man, for cardboard spools. Like, what the heck? And so
Oh
there's been all these
yeah.
expectations around, like, I should be able to put whatever spool of filament, however it is, in here, and it should work flawlessly, which,
Yep.
not exactly a reasonable expectation, right? But I I understand it's something
Sure.
out there, and it is my responsibility as a developer to, like, try to provide solutions for all these things. I geek out on spooling solutions, which is a silly, such a tiny niche thing, but I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. And so we kicked around all kinds of different ideas and stuff, and sometimes the simplest things, like, I just came up with this print that uses a technique that I love vase mode printing. For those of you who don't know 3D
Hmm.
printing, it's literally just like watching the printer just build up a singular layer at a time. And so it creates these little, let's call it reinforcement sleeves, I guess, for the cardboard spools so that the flanges become more stiff and that they roll on the flange roller style thing. And so that was born of a lot of people having expectations that my product was going to work with cardboard spools. I never said it was designed to do that, but like I said, it becomes an issue as we go forward. And so it's out there. I'm not going to claim that it's a perfect solution. We have more solutions now than ever before for how to use it in the box if it doesn't work with, the roller systems that we've got. And there probably will continue to be innovation, but it was easy. I wanted to put it out there. It was easy for individual people to print, and so far it seems like everybody seems to think it's a good idea. It's already got a bunch of downloads, and we'll see.
That's awesome.
We'll
That's
see.
awesome.
But that was a fun thing, and it was born of me just feeling like I was getting my butt kicked on just missing the boat on certain newer product. I don't know. You got any good examples of like when it started feeling like it was bad expectation, but it got you to a better place?
Yeah, so you know, with what one of our formulas, our PET Gloop, right? There, it's hard to develop an adhesive for a plastic that has so many ways that it can actually be synthesized, or alternatively said, that there are a lot of different ways to basically make, add plasticizers or other elements to that particular polymer during the extrusion process. And so what we found is that a lot of times, some of the cheaper or maybe no name brand PETG filaments, they don't work with our PET glue at all. Like,
Mm.
it
Mhm.
doesn't actually work. And so it was at the start of when we started, building out this formula. We're like, well, we can't ever release this because it needs to work for all of the, PETG formulas, right, that are out there. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until, later on, about a year later, because we had the formula ready at the time we initially launched on Kickstarter, that we realized is like, well, that's such a small little section of the market, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just more so where I guess we reset our own expectations, right? Because we had this expectation that we needed to release the best possible product, period. And instead of basically falling into the trap that perfect is the enemy of good, right? um,
Yeah, that's such
you
a
know,
great way to put that. Yeah.
yeah, we
Mm.
were we were striving to hit, like, again, a perfect adhesive for all of these formulas. And it was more so just a realignment, if you will, of our own expectations, and said, well, hey, maybe we just release the formula now, and then we let everyone know, saying, hey, it might not work with these particular types of filaments.
Hmm.
And just being upfront about it. Yeah, we still get some, flack for it, because it's like, oh, hey, it's not working. But, again, at the end of the day, it's like, well, you know, we released something that could help a lot of other people do something. I'm sorry that it's not working for you in this choice. It is what it is, right?
It is. It is. And I guess the question that it brings up for me is that is it reasonable? How do you disclaim that
Hmm.
you can certainly say like, look, in our experience we've used it with these things, but like we're operating in support of a much larger industry where new formulations and stuff are coming out all the
Hmm.
time. It's hard for us to obviously catch all the use cases and be aware of all the use cases a lot of the time. Now, for something like with what you sell, thankfully it's at a price point where I think there's a reasonable message that can be sent that's like, look, you paid let's say what's the smaller bottle, like 19.99, $20 or 30
Yeah, it's like
bucks or
19, yeah,
okay.
19 to 30
So for
dollars
20
average price.
for $20 you can get this out there,
Hmm.
and you know that it works with these things. I don't know if you have a list of like known stuff that it's been tested with or whatever,
Hmm.
but I also think that's a reasonable price point where people can be like, okay, I'm going to give it a go,
Hmm.
even if it's not on here. And maybe it's going to work and maybe it's not. And what's the worst case? I'm out $20. or I just use it on other stuff, right? But you're
On
gonna
other stuff. Yep.
always run into those fussy people that are just like, this isn't why I got it, doesn't work, and they
Mm-hmm.
just get upset, and everybody has a different expectation of what kind of value they should be getting
Mm-hmm.
from your product, right? And that's always
Yep.
going to probably exist, and so some of that's on you, just to like learn how to just accept as a as
Mm-hmm.
a as a known truth of being in business.
Oh,
um
absolutely.
and crafting your responses in a way, because a lot of times people come at, I like to say, they come at you guns blazing, and
Oh,
I would say a solid 80% of the time, if you just respond to them and remind them that
yep.
there's a human on the other end of this conversation, and that
Yep.
I hear you, and that I'm sorry you're frustrated, just kind of validating where they're coming from. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but I'm not saying cave to it, because like I said, a
Yep.
lot of times it's coming from a place of just like lack of education. I'm so sorry you're having an issue. But as we mentioned in the build guide, or as we mentioned on our
Yep.
label, that this isn't necessarily 100% guaranteed to work with everything. Here's what we
Yep.
found. I appreciate your feedback, because it helps us make the product better. We're not trying to fool anybody. It's like, it's weird that you have
Yep.
to have these conversations with people, because I think there's a very common perception that just everyone is out to get. There's a lot of people out there that feel like the world is out to get them, or fool them,
Yep.
or con them in some way.
Absolutely.
And so you need to gently remind them, like, look, I'm just doing the best I can here, and
Uh-huh.
most of the time I think that can turn things around, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
crappy to get it, like,
Mm-hmm.
when that's somebody's default position.
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because that's the customer expects in many cases that they're gonna not get their problem solved, right? Which is why they're coming guns a blazing,
Yes.
you know. And so by taking a different approach, we're hopefully trying to reset the customer's expectations,
Mhm.
right? Of how we handle situations.
Yeah. But the
So
burden is
you
always on
know,
you, right? It feels like you kind of
yeah,
resent the fact that it's just like, why do
yeah,
I have to be the nice guy here when you're just being a complete
yeah,
jerk store here? But that's the cost of doing business, and so it's like, unfortunately, the the lack of other people's social graces or psychological well being sometimes is on you,
yeah,
which can suck. But my part of my coping mechanisms is like, I try not to look at support emails like first thing in the morning, just as like,
uh,
again, putting some layers of protection on there until I'm ready to deal with the things
there
of the
you
day.
go.
And sometimes, not as much as I value and am given this encouragement for responding quickly.
Hmm.
Sometimes on negative stuff, it just takes it's better to just let it breathe for a bit, and think about it.
Yeah,
And so I will actually try to add some time just to make sure that I'm checking myself, to
sure.
realize, like, okay, my default is defensiveness. I'm feeling upset. Is that reasonable? How do I get myself in this person's shoes? And there's not
Hmm.
always logic there. Sometimes there's just like, you're trying to apply logic and reason where it does not exist, and you just have to
Sure.
write that off. You do what
Yep.
you can within reason. I usually follow a three strikes rule. I respond if somebody continues to be abusive or whatever. It's just like,
Yep.
hey, you're welcome to return. I'm happy to refund. Let's figure this out. And then if they continue to be
Yeah.
badgering and abusive, it's block and ban.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to protect yourself. And I think that's
Yep.
something that a lot of people don't expect when they're getting into business, that you have to create some psychological barriers, some
Oh
mental
yeah.
health, blockades for yourself. Um,
Some expectations for yourself that you need to
mhm.
you need to build some wards, if you will.
Sure, sure. But to your point, um the setting of the customer expectation, or dealing with the fact that a lot of customer expectation, I like to say, it seems
Mm.
like it comes from a place of entitlement a lot of times for people, which really
Yep.
stinks. But
Yep.
kind of nature of the beast. But the negative expectation is strong, and the reason they come at you guns ablazing is because they've been conditioned, unfortunately, by
Mhm.
bad actors, bad, companies, not everybody adheres to this,
Hmm.
that have made them bitter or cynical, that like every company is out there, and it's really hard for them a lot of times to understand what the scope of who they're dealing with, because anybody can start up a store and
Oh yes.
make a web page, and I always
Hmm.
laugh when I get these emails about like, we'd love to come to your corporate offices and tour the place, whatever. I'm like, why do you assume I have a corporate? I'm like, I'm one guy that was in his garage for a long time, and
That's
but,
hilarious.
people don't know, and maybe that's the better default
Yeah.
expectation for people, to
Mm,
assume that you're
yeah.
bigger, but it works
Well,
against you. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't tell you how many times we get customers that email us, assuming that we're some massive, huge company.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's because you say
it's
you're an
two guys.
empire. Empires are typically big. Empires of sticky.
I said I'm building an empire of
Yeah, I didn't say
sticky.
we are an
I'm not a.
empire. We
Yeah,
have an
yeah,
empire of 2 right now, or 4. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, it just things take time, and communicating that to customers, as well as trying to reset those expectations that we're not an
Mm.
Amazon
No,
here.
we're not.
We don't have 15,000 employees working in a warehouse that can get your order out in 2 seconds after it's placed.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's a small business owner just constantly shaking their fist at, dang you, Amazon, for
yep,
ruining it for everybody.
yep.
But in a similar fashion, the VC mentality of we don't care if we have revenue. We're just going to build a following. We're going to get massive, user base and all that stuff, and then we'll worry about how to make money with it. Like, there's just this weird trend in larger business that it's just like growth at all, even if you're
Hmm.
losing money, right? And that sets such an odd tone for those of us that are
Hmm.
bootstrapping or trying to, like, no, I want to build something sustainable from the get-go,
Yep.
because I feel like there's more potential for longevity, and it's not, and it's less stressful a lot of the time, not have to, well, kick that can down the road. I'll figure out how to appease the
Yep.
investors later or whatever, and then before you know it, you're bankrupt. And
Yeah, you're bankrupt because you you
um,
you have nothing that you can sell worth of any money. So,
yeah. So okay, so what have we covered so far? We've talked about expectations of customers, expectations of product.
customers.
We dabbled a little in self expectation. Okay, but
Mhm.
let's go a little deeper. Let's go a little
Oh,
deeper
man.
on self expectations, right? Because I talked about, okay, so mental health barriers and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
like, how hard is it as the face of the business, as the director, like,
Mhm.
find that balance? Like, what are the tools, again, in your toolbox? We talk about, there have to be barriers, there has to be balance.
Mhm.
What are those juicy nuggets of actionable items that you can give our
Sure.
our audience here?
S So, these are something that I still it's so hard to actually do, but the biggest thing is try and set hours in the day that, you're gonna go to work at this time and you're gonna be done with work at this time. Um, being a business owner, and so connected to the business, it is so hard to put down that phone or check the email.
Boy,
And
howdy.
just and just see what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can say that setting these rules up and following them will lead to a better a better home life, if you will, but
Mm-hmm.
also a better state of mind. And so also along those lines, when you're doing something new or that you haven't done before,
Right.
expect it to take much longer and
Oh
cost more,
my
and
God. Say it again for the people in the back, my friend, because it's the worst, thing. It will always take a lot.
yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna always
yeah,
take longer than you expect it to. And I don't know why. Why
yeah,
do we have these expectations that, I can have 30 things on my to-do list in the day and somehow think I'm gonna get those all done? What is that?
yeah,
It's-
yeah. And like this is something that I was struggling with literally last night and today, is that I have probably 5 6 commitments that I'm supposed to get done by the end of this week, that I've said, hey, this is my goal to get this done. And now it's like, well, here's the end of the week and I'm no further than I was at the beginning of the week, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really tough because it's like, okay, well, now I'm basically forced to prioritize, and now I feel like I'm not meeting the expectation that I set of myself,
Yeah.
right? That I was going to get these things done.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to figure out, it's like, okay, well, it's not going to end up happening, right? And you can't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
What you can do is you can set up a process or a plan to say, I missed the deadline. These are the reasons why I missed the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Let's plan out for how I'm going to make up missing that deadline. How am I going to adjust things around, and basically come up with a solution. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is realizing that when you've missed it, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up. Just figure out how to get it done.
Well, and
You know.
what the context that's missing from that is that
Mhm.
you it's not that you didn't get anything done. You didn't
Mhm.
miss the deadline because you were sitting on the well, maybe you did. And if that's another problem if it is. You were
Sure,
sitting on
that's
the
another
couch
thing.
just watching, just eating just the
Yeah.
nachos off your belly and
Yeah.
while you're just watching Adult Swim or whatever. But it's the context that's missing is that you decided to
Mhm.
reprioritize what you were doing, either because just more important stuff came up,
Sure.
typically I would hope that that's your
Yeah.
thought process, right? This didn't get finished
Oh,
because
yeah.
I chose to do these other things that I deemed more important, more time intensive and stuff like that. But you
Mhm.
never give yourself credit for that. Like, that's the thing. Like,
Yep.
I start my day, I use my reminders app on my phone. And I know a lot of people there's a ton of tools out there, Todoist and all sorts of other stuff out there that can help you get
Mhm.
organized and stuff. But I almost always start the day with, like, here are the things that I want to get done today. And then
Mhm.
I just drag them, drop them, and try to prioritize them by what I, need to get done. And then, but inevitably, um, I'm lucky. A good day, I'm lucky if I get 50%. It seems like that because it's not even. It's like I throw stuff up on this ongoing list. It's I've seen different strategies. I've tried to do, like, we'll pick 3 things and literally say these are going to get done today, right? Like, you can try to
Sure.
do it that way. My problem is that I'm juggling so many things that I will forget if I do not immediately
Mhm.
put it on a list, right? And so I just have this
Sure.
running list. So a better way might be, have the running list and then have a second list where I'm pulling items and, doing that so that I can at least see. But the problem is that during the day, I'm not updating the list with all the other things that I realized I missed or came up or whatever, to give myself
Yeah.
the context of, like, no, you actually got like 30 things done today. It's
Yep.
just that 20 of them weren't on the list, because
Yep.
they didn't you didn't know that
Yeah,
what
they
you
didn't
didn't
make
know.
it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't make it on there. So, not beating yourself up over the fact that you're feeling like you're not productive because you're missing that list, but you're not being fair in laying that out.
Mhm. Yep.
Mike in the chat, never let the machines win, asks, is it easier to separate work from non-work time now that my work is not in my home? Now, we're different in this front. I actually have a shop that I go to on a daily
Mhm.
basis, and that is a physical boundary. So we talked about setting some boundaries,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
talked about having business hours. Okay, that's
Mhm.
one that is just a great an easy expectation. So it took us a long time to do this, but on the website, on the chat, on the email, auto email responder for support requests and all that stuff, I lead with, we are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. We will do the best.
Mhm.
We are a small company. We may not get to this right away because we're juggling other things, but we will respond. We aim to respond within 24 hours. So setting expectations
Mhm.
up front, talking about that, Britt, I'm looking at you.
Yep.
And really just trying to define that these are the boundaries of our operations. We're a small business. We have lives
Mm-hmm.
too and stuff like that. And also, if you order something at 4 p.m. on a Friday, it will not go out until we're back at it on Monday. We do not work over the weekends. You probably don't
Yep.
work over the weekends. Do you want to? I don't say that, but that's, the kind of the
Yeah.
implicit
Yeah.
suggestion. And that's some low hanging fruit that obviously like really helps
Mm-hmm.
remind people who they are dealing with, right? Like,
Yep.
because they won't know. There, a lot of times the assumption is like you could be a company of 50 people and be working in shifts and having customer support 24/7. You know, hey, you know what, Amazon? It's great that you have 24/7 support, but
Yep.
when it's going to somebody overseas that can actually manage that in a non-typical work time that is not able to actually help me, how helpful is that actually?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like sometimes I think it's
Yeah.
better to just let's
Oh
just
yeah.
set the precedent. Let's set the stage a little bit better in here. So to answer
Yeah.
your question, Mike, yes, it has been better in a lot of regards. I am not perfect. I still as a founder, this is a founder's dilemma that
Mm-hmm.
because we are so digitally connected, because like everything can push to my phone, like if I want to, like, because I want to respond in a timely fashion, I want to be accessible. We just enabled a
Yep.
chat feature, an online chat feature, and people are loving it. And I'm realizing like it's opened myself up to like yet another distraction that I haven't quite figured out how to manage. So it's allowed us to capture more immediate sales, which is a positive. But the downside is it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a more of an expectation of like I'm going to get an immediate answer here, and when it's just me and I'm trying to juggle that between other things. So again, we have a little thing that's on there. I may not respond right away, but I will respond. Go ahead and leave this message if you want. You can also send us an email. You know, so boundaries, guys. Boundaries is
Mm-hmm.
really important. Setting yourself some office hours, trying to stick to it as
Yes.
best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
That physical location where you're kind of like mentally going and coming home, so that you're like, I'm in
Mm-hmm.
work mode. Okay, now I'm home, and but
Yep.
it's not, it's imperfect. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
better in some ways. It's harder in others. It feels less efficient because now I have a travel time that I have to
Yep.
get there. But it is very clear that I am at work or I am not
Mm-hmm.
at work, and so there's a defined
Yep.
boundary. What other tips do you guys have? So first of all, I know I haven't talked about it, but it's like we obviously, any brave souls out there are
Yeah.
welcome to join the conversation. We do have
Call
that
in.
link, but I know that it's a weird time for a lot of people at work and stuff like that, so we understand. But at any point, if you are listening back and you want to join the conversation, we do welcome that. We have a link that we're
Mm-hmm.
pointing at it in our YouTube stream that allows you to use your phone or your computer or whatever technology you've got to just get involved in this conversation. Which isn't to say that we don't appreciate all the great commentary that's coming through on chat as well. And look at this. No sooner do I say that, it's like we're just begging for somebody, talk to us, please. It looks like we've
Please.
got Courtney. I'm gonna guess this is the Courtney from Filament Stories on the line, and I'm gonna loop her in here
Awesome.
right now. Are you ready for this? We don't know.
Let's do it.
We don't know what's gonna happen. We never. This is the Wild West, right? Okay.
Yep.
All right, Courtney. I am unmuting you.
All right.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I
Can you
can.
hear me?
Welcome. First of all,
Yes.
Yes.
first time caller, long time listener.
I am.
Awesome. Tell us
All
where,
right.
where are you? Where are you coming from? And who are you for anybody who hasn't met you before?
I'm in North Carolina, and I am Filament Stories. I'm half of Filament Stories primarily. I'm the part that you see,
Which
but
half?
not the part that does all the hard work,
The-
which is my husband Chris.
The better half? Who's the better half? I will not. We won't get into that.
Oh, absolutely him. We would
So
do nothing
humble.
without him. He makes us look good. He's great.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
What can we do for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm listening to you describe your lists and getting things done, and that 50% is a good day, and that's my life.
Yeah,
Oh,
that resonates.
yeah.
There's
That-
so much. There's so many platforms. There's so many things coming in from so many different directions, and they all need attention. And then you have your things that you need to get done.
Sure.
That
Mm-hmm.
if you don't ignore some of that, you'll get drowned in all of the
Right.
little things,
100%.
and then you
Mhm.
don't get the things done that are important
Yeah.
at the end of the
Yep.
day. Yeah. So I'm just listening to you all. My is I'm coming from a different perspective. I'm content creation, so I'm a little bit different than you all. You all have a product.
Mm-hmm.
you have that is the end of the day. Whereas my job, I think, really is to try to connect people and companies together. I love filament. I want to connect people with great filament and companies with
Awesome.
people who want great filament. And that was what I feel like my job is. Where I'm going to make money in that, I don't really know.
Well, that and just so we have some context, like how far into the Filament Stories story are we?
Let's see. We're not quite a year.
Okay, so you're
I
still
think
very
our
Okay.
first, yeah, we're pretty young. So I think our first
just a baby.
post was around beginning of June
Okay.
of last year.
Well, let me just
Okay.
say.
Things have moved fast.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let me just say, I first of all, I love the model. I'm such a fan of obviously community, and I always feel guilty that I feel like I don't engage enough. Like I do engage a lot, and I love doing that, and I wish I had more time from it because it's just such a great feeling when you're making those connections, and it's really how we interact in this day and age. And I love that you're trying to figure out how to navigate being this connection from the I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but saying like from the common man to the business, and like what who to support, and why these things are great and why you might need them. I mean, you're that influencer we were talking about earlier. You literally are, because obviously Andrew's worked with you. I know you've shown off some of our stuff as well, and thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's such a challenging place to be, and we've talked to a lot of content creators out here, that which is very much a business, guys, very much just a different mindset of businesses, and you have these different considerations where you're trying to keep the business happy, because a lot of times that's where your money's coming from, but you're trying to be true to your audience as well. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
speak to the
Yeah.
expectations around that at all for us.
No, you are right, and you please speak for me. I'm new to this, but I do have a different approach, and that you're absolutely right. I want to now one job that I have that's very easy is, if this were 5 years ago, filament was a whole different ball game,
It really
right?
was, yeah.
Getting filament that was good filament that would
Mm-hmm.
work, it clogs. Most filament these days is pretty good.
Yeah.
It
Mm-hmm.
may be, less or more, but my job from that standpoint is pretty easy. So I'm really just, awareness is most of what I'm trying to do, but then other products. And you're right, from people who have just gotten a 3D printer and they see a few brands on Amazon. About 50% of our audience is the US, but we have a significant portion that's in we have, I think, on YouTube, we have 15% are from India. So I was
Oh,
really
wow.
excited. I got some filament from India. I started
cool.
contacting and say, but most of the time I just sit back and I'm getting flooded with filament, and I'm, trying to figure out what I can do to show as much as I can
Right.
and let people make a decision what's right for them. And it always makes me happy and guilty at the same time when people say, "Oh, I have bought so much filament because of you."
No, that's fantastic. I mean, what a great way. And your challenge, obviously, as you're getting started in any business, as you're getting started, is just like you have to make a lot of concessions to get that reputation built up, right? It's like you don't,
Mm-hmm.
it's I call it the drug dealer model a lot of times, where it's like you give them
Yeah.
the free ones and try to get them hooked, and so as you
Yeah.
build that following, now you can start to charge more for supporting these things and all that stuff. But you bring up a really a great point that I have on my list that I'm just really glad you brought it up, that the international community that we're part of, that we are a global society, and if anybody that ignores that as a business does so at their own peril these days, because it's just so unbelievably massive, guys, to like understand when you open up to like a global audience, like the potential and the scale at which you can operate.
Mm-hmm.
But with that comes different expectations, because there are cultural expectations around stuff. How companies in India are accustomed to interact and do business and stuff is completely different than not completely different, but it is different than the US and China. And there's obviously traditions and all sorts of interesting things that you kind of have to learn to navigate, not hopefully not saying things that are insulting, yeah, I've heard a lot of times,
Exactly.
a lot of cultures, like it's
We
considered rude to negotiate off the bat, not to go through the social graces and ask about, personal lives and stuff like that. I don't know. Have you
Yeah,
experienced that?
um, no, again, we're sort of new. I had an unusual experience, which was one of the companies that is in China wanted to have a Skype call and show me the factory and answer any questions. And there was a translator because even though we had been communicating, and I really thought that he spoke very good English because it was very clear. We would, answer back very quickly, and we'd been talking for a good while. And then he didn't speak any English, but it was,
Oh
the
wow.
cultural was, we are here for you. You are very important. We are here. But then there was, I'm not sure what questions I should be asking. And so I wanted to be respectful. And anyway, it was very exciting. But that was kind of thing. I suddenly felt like this weird filament rock star, and
You are a filament
very,
rock star.
very odd for me. But yeah, and I think my model is, well, first of all, I mean, I love filament, which is clear, and it's exciting for
And not
me
clear
to get
filament.
filament from India and to get filament I got some filament from Turkey.
Oh
It's all
wow.
plastic, but yeah, that was super exciting. And that was an interesting thing. She had sent it was too expensive. So she had a friend who was coming to the US who then mailed it to me,
Oh
but the
wow.
handwriting was very hard to read, and so it got returned to them, and then I was like,
Oh.
print it, and it finally made it to me, and she had some food in there, which I think some of it was still good. But in any
Oh,
case, that was
that's very
fun.
sweet though.
But it's very, that's a lot of fun, and I know that there is a portion of the audience, but it is small on a per country level.
Mm.
But to me, I'm just excited to show it. And my model is, I feel a little bit, this is going to be a weird comparison, like the Twitter model. We were all like, when Twitter started, how the heck are they going to make any money? There's no ads, there's nothing,
Right.
right? They're just
Well,
letting us all send messages to each other. When are they going to make money? And I sort of have that
now.
model, which is, I just want to get everybody connected, and I'm going to be here and I'm going to do my job. And then I think as I move forward, when I have a big enough audience, and we're getting a big audience. We're like
Mm-hmm.
91,000, almost 92,000 on YouTube, which is
That's amazing.
amazing.
That's so great.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting. But then you look at it, and what percentage of them have notifications turned on? What percentage of them and a shorts audience is entirely different than a real audience. I
Sure.
don't mean that, because they're coming in from the shorts feed. And so that is a little bit different. And it's much
Sure.
easier to grow a shorts audience. But yeah, so I want to grow the audience. And then I think I'm going to have, I can come back and say, here's what we can do. Here's what our reach is. But in the meantime, my investment's pretty easy. If I see a really pretty filament, I'm just going to buy it.
Yeah.
There you go.
$25.
Well,
It's not a big deal. And I've got content right there. But at the same time, I do have filament coming in, and we are working with companies, per the pasta for one, but we're helping them out in a whole different way. I'm so excited that we're getting to help them out with their social media. That's so fun.
oh, this is great. I love hearing this. And obviously, look, if Twitter's taught us one thing, Courtney, it's that you just got to succeed to the point where a billionaire just buys you, and that's really,
Right.
So you're getting there.
Right.
You'll be there soon enough.
I'm on the way.
Yeah,
That's-
you're on the
Yep.
path.
That's the track.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's
If I can
fantastic.
just get, yeah. So anyway, but that's a whole different model because I don't have a product. But I saw you talking about the overwhelming amount of things that need to get done,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
the prioritizing, and then how sometimes things that really aren't that important get in the way of your day.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, you look at what you've done and it is not what you wanted to get done.
No.
And that is my life a lot of times.
Yeah. So, how do you, and I think we all feel this, right? Because how do you avoid
Mhm.
beating yourself up over that? Like I said, because when you really step back and analyze it, it's not, unless you're really truly like wasting your time, which, we can all be just, I shouldn't have spent so much. Like that's why usually I'm like, I probably spent way too long on Twitter today. But I also don't give myself credit for the fact that is actually some degree of downtime and self-care for me, that it's just like,
Mhm.
I'm getting value out of that. That is like actually like a healthy thing in some ways. So, but again, it's all about balance. Like if it's too much of one thing or the next. And so, I'm really I'm really happy, Courtney, that you called in and that resonates with you and you share that. I understand I think it's a challenge for everybody. And I hope that, moving forward, you cut yourself a little bit of slack and just make sure you're taking some time to appreciate the fact that it's like you're getting a ton done and you are, and sometimes stuff moves to the next day or whatever. But that's just life, and you're not special in that regard. I'm sorry to tell you, like everybody's dealing with it. And I think we just need to hear that. So some and that is our kind of psychological self-care aspect that is probably really lacking in the business community. Like we're so used to like all this sexy, we're doing great, business is good, go, and all this stuff. But we do way better to just be honest and admit, okay, that there's me time and there are things that you need to do for yourself so that you can sustain, that you're not going to do anybody any good if you burn out, right? So I hope you're giving yourself that credit and that time. Did we lose her? We may have lost her. Well, you know what? Well, that's a good point, because we're coming in on the top of the hour. Oh, there she's back. She's back.
Am I here?
I hear you now.
I lost you.
My
screen. No, I was saying not only do we need time for us, but we have young children, and so if we work too hard, it's to the detriment of them, and they want to do things with us. They like 3D printing, but only to a point when it's like,
I'm in the same boat. Yeah, the littles and family time is important. It's all so important, and it's great that you found a way to involve them as well. I think that's great. I don't feel like I do that enough.
To do a project with 3D printing for school, and they were like, "Mom,
they're like this again?
Come on, again?
No,
but really, we could print." And I'm like, no.
But see, you recognize that. That's good.
Oh yeah.
That's good. Well, hey, Courtney, listen, I really hope that we can have you back sometime. Maybe we can see your shining face as well, too, so that we can kind of talk a little bit more in depth. And maybe you can share us some strategies, because you are a prolific TikTok user in all the platforms. I mean, honestly, you're doing it. That's what you do. I feel like I could probably benefit for some consulting time from you and stuff like that.
We absolutely want to pick your brain too.
Okay, man, I gotta tell you, I don't know if you all are going to Murph. I was absolutely positively we were going to Murph, and then my daughter won. She qualified for a national competition, and it's the same 3 days. But the competition doesn't start until Saturday, and so my plan, because I really want to see everyone who's going to Murph, and so my plan, and she was like, "Mom, you got to go," and she's 10, and I'm like, "I can't go, honey. You qualified for national." And so she was like, "Yeah, you got to go." So I think I may go for Friday and then fly out on Saturday. And I know it's Friday's not the biggest day, but I was messaging Joel, and he was like, "No, it's worth it. Go for Friday." I mean, but I want to see people and be, because I could pretty much drown in 3D printing. I could just hang out in it forever.
You would die a happy death, just buried in filament.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, but that's awesome to hear. No. We will both be there. Also be at IRF, which may be a little closer to you if you do that. So that's the East Coast Rep Festival.
Awesome.
That's in
I may be October. My husband may be with the children, and he was like, "You should go," and I was like, okay, so I think I'm going.
Take that.
Awesome.
Take that pass while you have it. Yeah, good.
Yep, exactly.
Good.
So, all right. Well, thank you all for having me. I'd love to come back. I'll find the camera button. Okay. Brush my hair.
Our people will be in touch. We'll reach out. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. That was awesome hearing from you. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, wow. What a treat.
That's awesome.
What a treat.
Yes.
Love Courtney. Love all her stuff, all her filament stories. You guys, if you're not following her, if you don't know who that is, go check her out on all the social medias or on her YouTube page. She's almost at 100,000 already, man. That's fantastic.
That's incredible.
In less than a year? Come on.
That's
incredible. Let's go. Yeah. Again, as always, covered a lot of ground. Covered a lot of ground today.
Yes, we did.
Not nearly enough. Late to the disclaimer, but we're just like, hey man, we're trying to figure this out too. I don't have this figured out. There's some days I feel like I'm doing better at it than others, but we're still in the journey as well, which is what this is all about. I hope you guys feel like you got some good tidbits from it today, and that wherever you are in your business, you are making progress. Just keep putting that one foot in front of the other. And like I said, self-care, set some boundaries, balance,
Mm-hmm.
all those good things that we hear all the time. Like, don't be ashamed of, like, take the me time and some mental health stuff and all of that, and just mash up. It's all important.
Yep.
It's all important, guys.
Yep.
So
Everything's important.
yeah, but I think at the end of the day, if we're having to rank these things and talking about expectations, it's like the ones you put on
Mm-hmm.
yourself are typically the heaviest, the most,
Yes.
potentially destructive or toxic. And so, make sure that you're taking that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll help get you, because all the rest, as long as you're operating and firing on all cylinders, or at least half of them sometimes, the rest can be dealt with. But
Yeah.
as always, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you're listening back after the fact, if you want to catch us on a live tape-in of the whole thing, we do it every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, which is noon Eastern. Good lunch and learn time for some
Yes.
people. If you're in the Midwest, like our friend Andrew here, that would be 11 o'clock. And then
11 o'clock. Yeah.
and we're really excited that we've had some international crowd as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
know that, thanks to Fotis and Lift Harris and some other people, some of our international people as well.
Oh, yes.
Like I said, we're trying to be as accessible. We realize we're part of a global community here, and it's been awesome, as always, guys, interacting with you. Andrew, parting words for today before we wrap.
Oh man. Well, I think you said it so beautifully that the expectations you put on yourself, tend to weigh the heaviest. So, sometimes it's okay to look at those expectations and say, "Hey, wait a second, are these actually manageable? Can I actually live up to these?" And if not, again, feel free to juggle them around. Too often you get caught into this feedback loop where you feel like you're not doing enough, or, you're not living up to that expectation you're setting. And,
Right.
you're going to burn yourself out if you don't recognize it soon enough and just take a step back and say, okay, hey, how do I manage this better?
Couldn't have said it
So
better, my friend. Well, awesome. Well, listen, it's a pleasure as always. Happy weekend
yes.
to you. Happy weekend to everybody. You guys, feel free to tweet at us if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, all that stuff. You can find
Mm-hmm.
me on Twitter, especially, but everywhere at Repkord. Website's repkord.com. And Andrew over at 3D Gloop.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's
Awesome.
it. That is another one in the can. Wrapping up, signing off for today. Until next week, we'll see you guys next Friday. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Take care. And